Welcome back to the Road of Life podcast, episode 4.
What are we talking about today, Bennett?
We're talking about being a beginner. And whenever we start something in the beginning, we're a beginner. And we just need to own that.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes we don't.
A lot of times we don't. I think we, as humans, always want to put our best foot forward, put up a front, if you will, a lot of times, in that we maybe have had more experience, or we want to be further along than we are, or at least portray that we are further along than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, we're actually slowing the process down.
In order to get where you want to go, you have to start from where you are and make your plan, draw your path, draw a map.
And if you don't own where you are, if you believe you're starting from further down the road than you are, you're missing critical steps on the journey to getting to where you ultimately want to go.
So ultimately, you're going to have to go back and hit those steps, which will make your journey longer. Having to backtrack.
Yeah.
You need to acknowledge and own when you're at the beginning. And I think what's tough about that is you can be at the beginning of one journey, but not be at the beginning of another. So you can be fairly advanced in one area of your life, but when you're starting something new in another area of life, you're a beginner there. And so it's sometimes a little tough to embrace that beginner mentality when we feel like, we've already done so much. We're not a beginner in life, but you are a beginner in this aspect of life.
Yeah, and I think a good example of that we've talked about in past episodes is we were relatively successful on the default life plan in our corporate careers. We both had success in our corporate careers, and then when we decided to leave that behind and pursue something completely different, completely foreign to both of us, entrepreneurship, we were starting at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And we needed to recognize that we didn't know almost anything. And we needed to own the fact that we don't know. Mm-hmm. We're at the beginning. We need to learn. And I don't know that we hit that on the head right out of the box.
No, we did not.
But I think, eventually got there. And it has, since we've adopted that mindset and that learning, I feel as though things have happened faster and more smoothly. It's never going to happen smoothly, but it happened, I think, a little bit more smoothly for us.
I think we were in hard denial about being a beginner at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think we thought our corporate success would translate hard onto this new path, onto this new journey. And, it didn't. And it won't, because there are lessons you can take with you, for sure.
Yeah.
But you're at the beginning of a brand new journey. You're going to have to become a curious learner again, because everything is going to be new. You need to learn this stuff. And I think we were in denial. And, that was one of the contributing factors to our incredibly fast first failure. It's interesting, because when I think back to my corporate experience through this lens of being a beginner, I have 3 examples that come to mind. 3 times when I was a beginner. And the first one was when I first got my very first corporate job at this company. I knew I was new. I knew I was a beginner. And I accepted that I was new and I was a beginner, but I didn't accept the role fully because I didn't ask questions. I didn't fully embrace being a beginner and having the opportunity to ask questions and learn things. And because of that, it took me a lot longer to have success. I would never ask questions. I had to learn everything on my own, do everything the hard way, the long way, as opposed to embracing being new and being a beginner and asking questions and learning. And then I changed jobs, and I was ready for a change. I was ready to embrace a new challenge and have a steep learning curve again. And in that job, I actually embraced being a beginner. I enjoyed being a beginner again, and I looked at it as an opportunity, and I learned something brand freaking new that I didn't know anything about. And I saw success way faster in that role because I was open to being a beginner. And then when we left our corporate jobs, again, I was like hardcore denial that I'm a beginner again. Like, I came from this corporate success world where I was having success, and almost like refuse to admit or refuse to embrace for sure being a beginner. But I'm at the beginning of this brand new road. Like we just talked about in one of the episodes, there was a giant exit sign off the default life highway that we took. So that means we're starting a new road. That means we're a beginner. But I had a hard time accepting going back and being a beginner again. And I think that really slowed us down at first. And it wasn't until it was like, okay, I am a beginner. I got a lot to learn. Starting with like, you got to change your whole mindset. Like we talked about in the last episode, like changing your mindset to embrace failure. Like that was tough.
That's a huge mindset shift. That's a huge change.
And you're not going to make those changes and have those huge shifts and transformations if you don't embrace being a beginner and being new and, you know, embracing the role of curiosity and learning.
It's having a little bit of humility. You don't have it all figured out and realizing that you have a lot to learn and being open to learning that.
Yeah.
And then I have a story in my corporate job as well of, you know, I don't want to go into too much detail because it can get kind of long-winded, but I was my first big corporate job. I was assigned to a field office in like middle of nowhere, British Columbia, and my boss was in a different location altogether. They were supposed to meet me on that day and didn't show up, and I show up to the office and no orientation. I don't have him there to kind of as a crutch to even introduce me. And then so I show up to this job, and the guy that was part of the interview process who happens by, and he's like, "Oh, it's a good thing you're here today. It's a big day for us. We've got a big safety meeting." That's the meeting you lead, by the way. And I'm like, "Oh, cool." I look at my watch. It's like 7:45 or something. He's like, "Yeah, it starts at 8 a.m. And it's just and then after that meeting, we've got a big emergency response planning meeting where, you know, we invite the regulator, and it's a big deal. And if we don't perform as a team, the regulator can actually shut us down, and it'll cost literally millions of dollars a day to the company that I now work for. So no pressure on day one. So we go to this meeting, the safety meeting, and he shows me how to kind of lead that meeting so that I can do it in the future. And then we go off into the emergency response planning meeting. And I learned right at the beginning of that meeting that, well, this is an emergency response planning meeting. You're the health and safety person, so therefore you have a very prominent role in this exercise. Which, I mean, on the surface, that makes a lot of sense. When you look at it, it's an emergency. I'm the safety person. Makes logical sense that I would have a big presence in this exercise. What makes a little less sense to me, though, is that on this particular day that I've been in the role for like maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half, that I would have a prominent role in this exercise. But they say, "Don't worry, we've got you." And they hand me this giant yellow binder, like literally 2 hands, like thud. It's like thousands of pages. It's got maps and phone numbers and procedures and for all these different areas and locations and well sites, and it's just a massive document. They're like, "Don't worry, everything you need to know is in this big yellow binder." I'm like, cool, that's amazing. And so I have this yellow binder now, and I have this exercise in front of me, and nothing but millions of dollars on the line. Nothing to it.
And you're at the beginning.
And I'm at the beginning, and I have to embrace that. Luckily, I leverage some expertise in the room, and we do thankfully pass the evaluation, the exercise in the eyes of the regulator. They say, "Yeah, we have that confidence in you that you guys could respond in the event of an emergency." And it's not anything to do with what I did on that day. It was that I was able to leverage some of the expertise in the room, and the yellow binder maybe helped a little bit, but we don't get that yellow binder in life. There's no binder handed to you with procedures and phone numbers and maps and of how to do all the things that you want to do in your life. You just don't get that. That's not something you get in life, unfortunately. So it's really embracing and understanding when you're at the beginning that you're a beginner and that you leverage, you know, what you have around you, the people, the maps, the phone numbers, all the things that you do have access to.
The podcasts, the masterminds, the people.
Yeah, everything you have access to, leverage it. But understand, at the beginning, you are a beginner. You're never going to know it all. No one expects you to either. It wasn't like they handed me that binder and said, "Hey, you're on your own here. We know that you've got a prominent role, and everything you need knows in that binder. So don't come looking to us for information. Like that wasn't the way it went down. It was like
that might have cost millions of dollars.
Yeah, here's your binder, but we're here. We're a team, and we know we've been through this. So if you need help, like leverage it. So anyway, and it was a good thing that day ended up the way it did, because future me had a reason to leverage all that knowledge and learning. And there was a big an actual emergency that I actually did have to respond to, where I pulled some of those learnings. But I think it's just really super important for folks to understand that in the beginning, you're a beginner, and just own that, accept that.
I think it takes courage to own and accept that.
Totally.
I think it's scary sometimes to embrace being a beginner in life. And so, like most of the things we're going to talk about on this podcast for the foreseeable future, courage. It takes courage.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah, everything in life worth having is going to take courage, because everything in life worth having is on the other side of difficult, uncomfortable, fear, discomfort, all of those things. And to get past those things, you need courage.
Because anyone can be a beginner at any time.
Yeah.
All it takes is starting a new journey, starting a new path, starting a new anything, and boom, you're a beginner.
Totally.
We're all going to be beginners lots more times in our lives.
Totally.
So the fastest way to be successful in that journey is accepting your beginner status.
Yeah.
Being curious, asking questions, leveraging the expertise around you.
Yep.
Taking action.
Happy adventures on your road of life. We'll see you when we see you.